Great day, everyone. Today, Gray transforms with Pier Luigi Lattuada. Pierre is an exceptional human being, triple doctor, PhD, PsyD, and medical doctor. Doctor. My man is eclectic in style and scholarship. He does so much for the field of transpersonal psychology. I've known him for many years, and I am excited to share this conversation with you. Enjoy. And make sure to comment, like, share, subscribe. More transformative conversations coming your way.
You must stay at the center of that mountain. There are 7 billion people in the world. Not everyone's going to get this.
Hello, great morning, great afternoon, great evening, wherever this conversation finds you. I am Travis Gray. This is Gray Transforms, and together we are transforming with, I love the Italian accent on that, Lattuada. Dr. Pier Luigi Lattuada has a medical doctorate, a PsyD, a doctorate of psychology, and a doctorate of philosophy and psychology. So a MD, PsyD, and PhD. He is the director of the European Transpersonal Psychology Association. He's also the president of the Global Transpersonal Network, director of the Transpersonal Psychotherapy School in Milan, Italy, department chair and a faculty member of the Integral Transpersonal Psychology program at Ubiquity University. Dr. Lattuada has published 20 books, several scientific articles. He discovered Biotransenergetics. Pierre, how are you?
Thank you, Travis, for your incredible presentation. Actually, it was Biotransenergetic which found me.
Which found you. Okay. You discovered it. It discovered you.
It aims.
Yeah. I had read somewhere that it said you founded Biotransenergetics. It was unearthed rather than something that you created. It discovered you. You discovered it. It was unearthed.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
I follow the process, and this happens.
Yeah. How did transpersonal psychology find you?
I am used to fix a date that was July of 1982. I went in Brazil for the first time. And I went in Brazil because my first wife was Brazilian. But I never liked Brazil. I was not linked with Brazil. I just liked India and so. So I found myself in Brazil with the carnival and samba and macumba and I said, okay, I am here. I go, I look around. And I went to a ritual of Umbanda, that are this syncretic cult, of trance, of drumming, and I entered there, and I was very judgmental. I felt fever and headache, and I was just looking around. I said, "What I am doing here?" But the priestess called me and start giving passes and smoking and chanting, and I start shaking, and fell down. And she said to me, now you have your spirit, your angel, now you are one of us, can stand up. When I stand up, I look around, and all that people that I was looking so judgmental, I see as brother and sister. Was, I could say, the first time I felt what does it mean to shift from the mind to the heart. And we could say that this was the beginning, because I already were doctor, and I was doing bioenergetics, Reichian bioenergetics, and Gestalt, and acupuncture, and so. But I was not satisfied. Something was missing, And I saw that day what was missing, this being truly in the heart. So I started looking around in Brazil, and I had several experiences where I start receiving insight about the embodiment, about what does it mean to go beyond the mind. And In the University of Belo Horizonte, the city I were, there were, I guess, the first, before ITP, the first chair of transpersonal psychology, I guess, in the world, was Pierre was there. So I found transpersonal psychology there in Brazil. This happens in that weeks. Everything happens. I found transpersonal psychology. I shift to the art. I started looking around and see the trance, the concept of trance, the embodiment, the spirits, the orisha, the archetypes, and this was the starting, was the beginning.
That's awesome. I love that the start was a transition from the head to the heart. That I think a lot of people have that a common experience in that way, a transition from the head to the heart. That shifting from the head to the heart, that's really beautiful. It's beautiful that it happened in Brazil. So was this the first time that you had been outside of Italy, or you had traveled around, you just happened to be in Brazil at this time?
No, before I was traveling in Europe, more the life before at that time I were 29. And the time before, were a time of 68, was the time of hippie, was the time of traveling all around Europe by hitchhiking, and so. But this is the first time I went so far, and I entered in a world that was so different,
Yeah.
so different, and which I didn't like. This was incredible. I never asked for, but I received so many gifts in that weeks. Then I had been there for 20 years, twice, 22 months per year, and this was one of a sort of laboratory where I could take some hints and the ashe. The ashe means the strength, the spiritual power. Because one of things, one of characteristics of Biotransenergetics is that is rooted into a tradition, shamanic tradition, we could say. And this is a sort of, if you get the contact with the source, then the river grows, but you feel the contact with the source, even though it's very different of the shamanism, of the pre-personal tradition, but received the ashe, the spiritual power of this. To be in contact with spirits, you don't need to have to be aware too much. You need just open up and trust, But this is the difference between a shamanic work and a transpersonal discipline, because you create also maps and models, to go beyond the dogma, go beyond the myth, for example, and have a transcultural, world-centric vision, without forgetting the root.
Yeah. So originally you were judgmental of the place. You're traveling around at the time. 29, you find yourself in Brazil. You find yourself in a shamanic circle of sorts, and then you experience that shift from the head to the heart. Instead of judging others, you're accepting others as one in the same, as a human family, and then that invites you to discover more. So did you go back to Italy and look at more transpersonal psychology things? You got into a school at that time.
Yes,
Were you already a medical doctor when you were
I
in?
was already medical,
Yep.
but it was just the beginning.
Yep.
And here in Italy, I had a class, we could say, a seminar, and every Thursday night I had a group of therapy. That was bioenergetics. When I went back, I started to call it bioenergetics transpersonal, transpersonal bioenergetics. I started introducing something that I received there, and was this group that I had for 40 years. Since then, I always, in the Thursday night, I had for 2 hours a group. And in that group was a sort of, again, a laboratory, alchemic laboratory, where the process, the understanding were refined, you know. And this was one of this Thursday night was one of the place where I built Biotransenergetics, you know.
So Biotransenergetics came before you gained all of these roles in EUROTAS and all these things. So what can you tell us? What is Biotransenergetics for those that don't already know?
This is, we could say in several ways, but first we could say this is a way to do this shift first. Try to go beyond the mind and recognize what does it mean to be in the heart. And of course, this is a never-ending story. Doesn't mean that I am always in the heart, but this is the way I try to build up for this. And Biotransenergetics. So the life is in trance. Everything is transforming everywhere. Everything is interconnected, and there are the laws. How we can respect these laws? The law of life energy. One of the law, for example, is making the two one. If you see any transformation, any time you solve a problem, you go beyond the conflict, you make the two one. So we could say that Biotransenergetics helps us to respect the law of transformation and make the two one. There are a lot of practice, but we could say that Biotransenergetics has an ontology, a epistemology, a phenomenology, and methodology. Ontology, as I told you, everything is self. The self is the principle of unity, the archetype of unity. So we should, in this participatory dialogue with the self, try to respect the law of the self and let the self work. This means that we have not to do something, but recognize what not to do to respect the principle of the self. Then, for example, does epistemology, which maps we can use? For example, one of the maps of Biotransenergetics is the square and the circle, to explain that in any time our experience is an experience of what appears on stage. And if you don't do something, we always forget the backstage. And the backstage is the unity. The backstage, the self. The backstage is the spirit. The backstage is the consciousness that brings everything together. We are always on stage. So try to, any practice you do in Biotransenergetics, try to reconnect the stage with the backstage. And we should synthesize the Biotransenergetics with 3 words that was also better: disappear, stay, and become. What does it mean to create a way, a methodology, for example, as Biotransenergetics? Means you live experience and you have maybe, I guess, the gift to recognize what happens. What were the laws of that transformation? What is important to change? For example, first, disappear. You are not necessary. You ego, you I are not necessary. Give up. Step back and let the self work. This is one of it. And there are practice and methodologies to learn, to teach to you how to disappear. Stay. If it is true that everything is self, it is true that beside the square there is a circle. When you disappear, the force of the self appears. This force of the self wants work. The medicine, stay in contact and feel the force of the self. And the force of the self, for example, if you stay, by staying, you realize that there are a lot of doors of perception that opens up. Doors of, for example, you feel pain. If you stay in contact with the pain and disappear, the door of pain open up and is remembering, wanting to shout or crying or anything. Memory, images, actions, all these are manifestation of the self. Stay in contact and let work. You can recognize this force of the self through several different manifestations. These are the archetypes, because anything that manifests from the self has a specific quality. For example, if you stay, you can feel sadness, you can feel rage, you can feel peace, you can feel compassion. All of these are qualities. All these qualities are a sort of line, of developmental line, The rage comes from the warrior. The peace comes from the wise one. The sadness, could say, comes from the water. And so we, by staying, you recognize the archetypes behind the personal, the transpersonal behind the personal. Yes, this is my sadness, this is my depression, this is my anxiety. But beyond, there is a force wanting to manifest. And this force is always transpersonal. Something, the super consciousness, is something that it doesn't manifest yet, but wants to, so stay. By staying, you realize the force working, and you realize that me and the force of the self, of the spirit, or whatever, but there is no boundary, there is no difference between me that I am observing and the force. So become the force, become the warrior, become the wise one, become the force of water, the force of fire, the force of. In this case, you enter in trance with the field, because another thing is, by disappearing, staying and becoming, you see that we are in a field, and that field is psychically significant, is working. Shaman called that the spirits, but it is something very normal. There is the field working. And if you disappear to your egos and problems and try to find solution and your goal and disappear to everything, stay in contact with the force and become the force, and you see that the force is coming from the field. And that field is the macrocosm, is the essence, is the consciousness, is the self working. So we should respect this process. And these three cornerstones, we could say, disappear, stay, and become, could help us to enter in trance with the universe, enter in trance with the forces, enter in trance with the ambient. For example, also in this moment, there is, the concept of trance means the unit of experience. Any experience we can have is three. Is me, you, and the field around us. Even in this moment, me and you and the field. Even though you are by screen, but there is a field around us. Maybe this field, if you stay, So on the stage, there is me and you speaking in a screen. On the backstage, there is the field working. For example, something, there is sympathy, there is affinity, there is no something, and this is working. And this, the more you stay and the more we realize that we are in trance in that moment, the more this field around us full itself of qualities, and you can work with that qualities. Let the feeling works and speak. Let the understanding works and speak. You spoke in the beginning. You spoke what you could say to the young. That young people are here. Say no. If we put on the field the young transpersonal students, what I say is influenced by them. And the more I enter in trance, the more I can speak something that is in resonance. Of course, we could enter more in methodology, but if we can understand these 3 points, we understand something about.
This is interesting. So you're saying that it's always 3.
Me, you, and the field.
Me, you, and the field.
Can
It's
you
always
separate?
3.
Can you separate in this moment? Can you separate what is happening around us?
No. I see that the field is a part of our conversation for sure.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
there's
Always.
always.
This is the trance. We are in trance. We can be in a superficial trance,
Yeah.
or you can enter in a deeper trance,
Yeah.
or in a chronicized trance. I don't care what about you. Always.
Yeah.
So we work with trance, trying to harmonize or balance the unbalanced trance by working with the field. If I try to solve a problem of communication between me and you by myself, I only work with my forces. If I see that we two are in relationship, okay, we are two, me and you in relationship, but we forget the circle. To enter better in communication, we could call the energy of compassion, which is here in the field, in the self.
I like this. This is like it's like cells divide into from 1 into 2 to communicate with one another to make a third thing, but that third thing turns into the organism that is one thing. So
Yes.
so it divides, it splits to be distinct with one another as distinct parts, but then it becomes a system greater than the whole. Really fascinating. I like this trajectory of disappearing, staying, and becoming. Would you say that there's the stain is a there's a couple of things. It was like the stain has this almost like an urge to become. It wants to become, and it's our staying with that sensation, that emotional experience, whatever is going on. The more that we stay with that, the more the doors open up into what it wants to become already. And then when we are in trance with that, that is the flowing of allowing the thing to become.
Yes.
I think that that's really fascinating. And then you were saying also that that from the self, from self capital S, I imagine self capital S, that from that self, that's where what is becoming is the archetypes, the symbols, the
They are
symbols,
transpersonal. They are
the transpersonal.
transpersonal.
Yeah.
Everything transpersonal. And in this, if it is true that we are into the self, or we could also say into the consciousness, the supreme consciousness, the unity. If it is true that you are in, and this is already wanting to go to the unity, we disappear to ourselves, our goals, our needs, our everything. By this disappearing is not to cancel. Is if I disappear, means I don't identify with that specific part of the self that is resonating with me, works, comes, and in that sense staying. And this stay, of course, is not I stay to go somewhere. I stay point. I accept completely. I call persistency of contact. Not just, yes, I feel sadness. I am in contact. No, stay. Persist in contact with the sadness. And you see the sadness starts moving, transforming, and start through the manifestation of the five bodies, we could say, sensation of the physical body, energetic, subtle sensation of the flowing of the energy, emotions, or thoughts, images, or insight, all this content of the five levels start moving. The more you stay, the more this content goes from personal to transpersonal, goes to archetypes. If we think to the four phases of Stangrof, abstract, biographical, death and rebirth, and transpersonal, if you let it go, the experience, you go from abstract, something happens, I don't know what is, to go to biographic. This is with my father, this is my... If you stay, there is a sort of death and rebirth, we could say, making the two one, and you access to transpersonal. Archetypes and insight and universal. This is something the same. By these three, so we could say, the first one, to disappear, I call passage from the zero. Make the zero. Staying, persistence of contact, and mastering of trance. Entering trance and become. This is just, three syntheses of a lot of other things that we
Yeah,
can...
I like it. It makes a lot of sense. I think another important aspect for transpersonal students is four things that you mentioned before, which is the ontology, the epistemology, the phenomenology, and the methodology. And so biotransenergetics, and correct me if I'm wrong, is a model for it is a model for experiencing the transpersonal. And so the practices that are within biotransenergetics, and for those that, you had mentioned the square and the circle. Other practices are shamanic related. They're postures and movements connected to elements and shamanic and culture and stuff. So those are some of the practices, some of the maps, some of the methodology, but the experiences are maybe the phenomenology is the trance. And then there's an epistemology, there's an ontology. So how valuable is it to organize those four pieces into a model? I think that is really valuable to emphasize that for transpersonal students.
This is a conversation. I don't would like to enter too much in theory, but you get one point. These four, I have a model that is called the Synergistic model. That is exactly this: ontology, epistemology, phenomenology, and methodology. As you said. And this is one of the difference between any practice we could do, shamanic practice or even other, just practice, because having a ontological and epistemological maps, your practice is improved a lot because you know what you are doing. For example, if I have simply the map of square and circle, when I do a movement, I know, for example, that yes, this is a movement. For example, I do this as movement to strength, to get the strength. But if I realize that by doing this, I enter in contact with the archetype of warrior, means the warrior is here. And by this, I call the warrior. So this movement become a mudra, not just a gesture, become a movement with power. But that movement with power is also because I have the map, the epistemological map that tell me I am here, I am doing this, I am calling the warrior. Yes, I can call the warrior. And also the maps wants to be universal, transcultural, transpersonal, archetypal, means the warrior is a manifestation of the self. So is universal as characteristic. The warrior is red, the warrior is strength, courage, will, determination, promptness, responsibility. All these qualities are here in just by doing this I can enter and call that field of qualities. The more I disappear to the more I stay and I become, the more I can make the warrior inside me grow, the qualities of warrior. And for example, my rage against my father, of my teenager, that is, the warrior comes and the teenager is there somewhere. We put in contact the warrior with the teenagers and a sort of education, because of course the rage of the teenager is impotence. If I give the power, the personal power, I help the person to get in contact with this part of the self that we can call warrior part.
So that teenager, by staying with it, is bringing out more of the qualities from the self that is more of the qualities of the warrior are allowed to become. And in trance of staying with that, more of that is becoming, more of that is and maybe the becoming, one way to describe that is that it is being brought to the surface. It's being brought to the ability to show and demonstrate and be in expression of those warrior qualities, or whatever it is that you may be calling in from staying in the space, staying in the self, staying
Yes.
with staying in the self, not self lowercase s, not with the ego, having disappeared from that, having let go of myself as different than other, but same as other, dissolved of other, and then like coaxing it out from the self is
Yeah.
by staying with it, and then you're becoming more of the warrior, more of the peace, more of
Yes.
whatever you're calling in.
Yes, maybe if you will have another time, I will show you some maps. For example, we could, there is a map that I call integral psychogram, which is the teenager. The teenager is into the same line of the wearer of light. To become the wearer of light there, you can process all the developmental process of the line of warrior that goes from impotence, violence, to aggressivity, to rage, to arrogance, to will, to power on the others, to self-affirmation, to self-realization, to going beyond the world to light. So means that where there is the problem, there is the solution. Where there is the weakness, there is the power. If you see the archetypal process that goes to the self, this is, for example, epistemological map. And if I say to you, no, no problem, you feel impotence and rage, perfect, stay there. First, disappear to anything, I am, yeah, blah, blah. Try to disappear, try to stay, because this is a gift. Here there is the force. The force that once brings you to maybe shouting, maybe crying, maybe fighting, but then you already see all the process and you accept the crying, the fighting, the crashing something or everything, because you know that this is a process that is going. This is a transpersonal process going to the weather of light. You already see the weather of light there, not just the something violent that is criminal or better, but and this is something important. Into the problem, there is the solution.
It is something important. I see that in the model that it's a route. It's a path to the transpersonal the transpersonal developmental intelligence that allows one to become the thing that they are seeking to become. Those things it's really incredible. So this is the foundation of your work. This Biotransenergetics. The president of EUROTAS. How did it? You're the director of the Transpersonal network. How did that create the fruits of your career?
This is as I told you, this was something that happens to me. I started go back to that time when I went back to the Brazil. I started to introducing something in my groups, introducing something that I say, oh, I can do a training for this, a course. We create a course. I put something together and I started teaching the course. People started coming. Then in Italy we had the psychology law, means the regulation of psychology came in 1986. Before this wasn't so. Then came the necessity to regulate. So the Minister of University started recognizing training. So I said, well, I try. I try to ask for recognition as equivalent of ask from you. No, I asked for the recognition. The first time they refused, because I called the training in humanistic transpersonal. They refused because they said, no, this is a combination of model. Not okay. So I changed the name. I call it transpersonal. They refused again. No, because transpersonal is not a psychology, it's a philosophy. So well, now I collect all the material I had. I sent out and I asked for the revision. Finally, they recognized. The process started in 86 and ends in 2002. 60 years to get the recognition to the Minister of University. So, in that time, I started to teach what I create as a methodology accredited by the government, and people, medical doctors, psychologists, by attending the training, they get the title, the degree of psychotherapist. What was something almost incredible to me, Then I needed to give networking, to give find a place to put all this. And I need transpersonal is good recognizing the world, because if you have a training in transpersonal, a transpersonal is falling apart.
Yeah.
So I started to enter in contact with the EUROTAS, trying to help EUROTAS growing. Then I entered in contact with Sophia, and so to networking, because of course the more transpersonal grows, the more the training has quality, So this was a process. It's a process that never ends, You start by doing something that is successful and things grows, Okay, because another problem or is all the ex-students that now they are psychotherapists, but they do biotransnergetic around the world. Well, around the world. For now in Italy,
Wow.
there are 150, I guess, psychotherapists that do biotransnergetics. And what to do? Let them doing whatever they want, a sort of accreditation, a sort of controlling
Yeah.
of quality. This is another part of the problem, you know. So having a strong
Yeah,
organization,
it gives it weight, it gives it
this
quality
helps.
control, it gives it foundation. All of those are valuable things.
Yes, but this, you know, I am not born for this. And you have
Mm.
to do something that I am not, as I told you, I come from 68, against institution, against
Hey, stay with it. Stay
control.
with
And
it. You're
now I feel
becoming.
myself
Stay with it.
that I need to do
No,
something.
I think that it is really important these days for us to look at transpersonal psychology and make it
I have
practical.
to purify my warrior.
You know, it's a both and thing. It's not a trying to be one without the other. It's trying to be both and create a system, a whole that is greater than the sum of either two by themselves. And so it's like if I stay, you know, indigenous and in my shamanic circles, that's going to
Yes,
be
of
great for my
course.
family, my community. But then I'm not going to have access to this growing outer Western world that is growing in the world. But if I get into that, then I've lost my roots. I could lose my roots on the other side. So there's a way to find and ground both.
Yeah, you are
Yeah.
focusing, you are getting all the points. This is another point because this both end make you in a situation where from this side or the other side you are attacked. The the ones that are romantic about shamanism, they say, ah, but the shamanism, the heart, the drumming, and not just this, not just this, because shaman is pre-personal. It's not transpersonal. It's not just a drumming or a feathers or a dancing at the moon that give you spiritual, make you spiritual. So you have to have maps and blah, 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 blah. And the other side, if you go to the academy, they see, bah, you use the drumming or the chanting or dancing, you are esoteric, you are not scientific. And this is a big problem because I guess in USA also, the mainstream is very against, or at least they are closer to this, no, you know. So we are in the mainstream because we are accredited.
Yeah, there are those issues. What I find when I enter a space of mainstream, I end up having such a beautiful niche with transpersonal psychology that I become a unique a unique I have a very unique offering to the therapeutic space that clients really resonate with, or the clients maybe they almost need something that is outside the box because the box has not been working, and so you need something outside the box. But there's ways that this applies to social institution at scale, businesses and governmental structures and things like this. So it's so fascinating that we get to be a part of such a rich field of psychology, and it's so awesome that I have this opportunity over years of knowing you, getting this chance to have this conversation. What are you excited about for the EUROTAS conference? What are you? It's stepping outside the cave. Is that right?
Oh, yes. Oh, you know, this is a great experience I am having because, as I could say, as many things in my life just happens. Since the time I decide to start, the river starts flowing. We already have more than 400 people attending, and we had at least 200 presenters 42 countries. But this happens. This is everything in place, everything flowing, everything putting in place. And if you go out of the flow and start thinking, but putting everything together seems impossible. But if you enter the flow, everything is going together. It's happening. I am very excited, and because I feel the field. Most of the people that are excited to be there, most of also the American academics, that they wanted to be. I guess will be something
it is very
very
exciting. It's a special
very-
opportunity to get together with other transpersonal psychologists and do this all over again. My first international transpersonal psychology conference was in 2017 in Prague, and it was phenomenal. I couldn't imagine a better experience to have this in Italy. Another great one. I think the last one in between Prague and Italy was in Russia. That was really incredible. So these having these conferences, these opportunities to network, it's about growing the field. It's about sharing of information. It's about connecting with your peers and continuing to empower this transpersonal psychology family that's all interested in the healing of others, interested in the transformation of individuals and systems for the good of the greater whole, the good of the space. Would you say that you add to the space when you are becoming, when you are staying with that thing and you're becoming more of the warrior? Is the warrior now adding to the space?
I think that there are a lot of good things happens. One is you feel at home finally, at home outside, because you can feel at home inside, but when you go outside, there, having this space where we feel together and at home, this helps a lot for transformation. Also, I could say that I have more than friends, brothers and sisters all around the world, in China, India, USA, and we meet there. Maybe we meet once per year or less, but there is that connection out of space and time. And this about speaking about maps, as we spoke before, knowing that you have this connection, it helps a lot in your ordinary life, because you are connected, you feel, and you know that you are not alone. It's not you are not alone in a sense of lack of self-esteem or something, but you are not alone is a sort of archetypal connection. The process is going, even though we live in this world that seems from pandemic ahead, seems that the unique thinking is, but you feel as in conference like this, you feel that we are alive, and the process of transformation is going on. This is very important. Also because, when you look at the journal, you look at the news, you see, what can I do? Or which kind of word? And when you see what they are doing, we do this, what we can. We are doing something.
Know that you are a brother with me and all of us in this transpersonal field. Thank you so much. Thank you for this conversation, Pierre. Really appreciate it. And, I look forward to our next meeting.
Thank you. Bye.
You're thinking, who is this man talking to?